Hey guys, it's Nathan. This is episode 32 of The Nathan Seaward Show.
The Nathan Seaward Show. Personal conversations with powerful men.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. Great to have you here, where every week I'm having deep, vulnerable and unedited conversations with men that have overcome adversity to thrive in their business and their lives. It's great to have you here. Hope you're having an amazing week. I'm still in Medellin in Colombia and just finishing up my time here. It's been a month already, which I can't believe. And from here I head to the States again for a week, and then I go over to London for September, which I'm so excited about, hanging with a lot of incredible people in London and doing some cool events. So I'm so excited about that. Colombia's been amazing. I've spent a lot of time just embracing the isolation, embracing my introverted nature and just spending time alone. This morning I just spent 2 hours just down on the balcony, no phone, no notepad, no laptop, nothing, just looking out over the city, watching the birds and just really being in this incredible space and just clearing my mind and just actually enjoying watching the world go by. And it was fantastic. My thoughts for the week. This week I've been contemplating the difference between success and fulfillment. And it's a tricky one. Tony Robbins says that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure, which is pretty heavy. A lot of my clients come to me and they say, man, I don't know what to do. I've got everything I ever wanted, and I still feel empty inside. There's something that's still missing and I can't quite put my finger on it. I feel lonely, and I just feel like unfulfilled, like something's missing. And so this is my work, really. This is my life's work, is to help people that have everything they want, that have already found success in their lives, that know how to get success, but something's still missing for them. And fulfillment's a tricky one. Success is a science. If you want to be successful in something, from property investing to buying stocks and shares to how to be better in bed in your sex life, there's a book about that. There's people that have done it. There's people that know way more about it than you, that you can read and you can follow their system. Success ultimately is a science. There's some variables in there, but generally someone's done what you've wanted to do, and so you can follow their formula to become successful. Fulfillment's a tricky one, because fulfillment is an art. Fulfillment's a daily practice. It shifts, it changes. It's completely individual to you. So you have to decide what brings you joy, what makes you happy, what your ultimate fulfillment would be. And the difference I see here is that when you're looking outside of you, when you're looking externally for things to make that emptiness go away, or to make that loneliness, or just that feeling of missing, you guys know what I'm talking about. When you look externally for that, it doesn't really change. Maybe you can get it to go away. There's lots of different ways we do this. Maybe if I had a different job, maybe if we moved to Hawaii, maybe if I had another 100 grand. Man, if I had another 100 grand, that would probably do it. Then all my problems would go away and I'd finally feel fulfilled. Or just simply looking at small things. If I buy a new watch, if I get the latest iPhone, if I get drunk tonight, that'll help me feel fulfilled. But as long as we're looking externally, it's only ever going to be temporary. So for me to find ultimate fulfillment, you have to go within, which is a scary place to be for a lot of us. You have to go within and start exploring the truth of what's really going on in your body, because the body never lies. The mind can argue with itself a million times about what's wrong, right, what I should do, this, that. But the body never lies. It gives you simple cues very directly in different parts of your body. But what's happened is we come to numb out what's going on in our body, because we're trying to follow these formulas to success in the external. We don't listen to what's going on internally. So for me, and I discuss it actually in this conversation with my guest this week, is I have a base level of fear around boredom. And so that keeps me busy. So the way I kind of numb out having to think about those bigger questions or what's going on inside me is I just don't stay bored. I stay busy with people, or with Facebook or Instagram, or with going out drinking, or anything. You name it, I know how to do it, to procrastinate or to distract myself. So we use these things to numb out. So my practice has been really not numbing myself out, not closing off and giving myself space to actually explore what's going on within me. That's why I took 2 hours out today just to do nothing, because that's actually scary for me. And I have a feeling that that's probably scary for you. If I said, do you go and spend 2 hours alone sitting in a park, You would say, I haven't got time. What would I do? That's ridiculous. You have to do stuff. You know, we have to be successful, blah, 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 blah. But when you actually stop and spend that time, then you're starting to hear what's really going on inside of your body and all the crazy thoughts that are arguing with themselves. And you can actually start to hear what the truth is that, you know, what brings you joy, what feels good, what's just endless mind chatter, and what are some of the things that can actually bring you joy. So until we make space for those things, fulfillment, that feeling of emptiness is going to elude us. I'll come back to this because this is my life's work. I feel like this is what I help people do all the time, is get into their bodies and actually start feeling what they don't want to feel. So we can be successful still. I still love success, but we can actually make that emptiness go away and find fulfillment as well. And one man that knows a lot about this, who's dedicated his life to this kind of thing, is Steve Roehm, my guest this week. Steve is a conversational hypnotherapist that lives in Nashville, Tennessee. And he's had a crazy life story. He's been through, like a lot of men that come on the show, they have a bit of a tumultuous upbringing, go through lots of highs and lows, trying to find themselves until they start to do what I just talked about, to go within and find out what actually makes them happy and what makes them feel on purpose, on mission, and fulfilled. For Steve, it was getting into hypnotherapy and helping now thousands of people to live more enjoyable, more happier, more freer lives through that work. It's a great conversation. Steve is very candid and very open about his life and some of the things he's gone through, so I think you'll get a lot out of this one. So please enjoy this very personal conversation with the powerful Steve Roehm.
What was life like in Kentucky? Back when I was there were maybe 50,000 people in the town that I grew up in. And a lot of it was agriculture. There was some industry there, but that's really what it was. It was farming and blue collar workers. And,
did you grow up on a farm?
No, I grew up in a small neighborhood. My dad worked in a factory. He worked for a company that I don't know if I could say the name of the company on here or not, but I guess it doesn't matter. It was Westinghouse. They were making light bulbs.
Okay,
that's what they did in Owensboro. And he was the maintenance guy. He kept all the machines running. You know, and that's what he did for, 40 years in various different places. He worked in different factories and, you know, different companies over the years, but that's pretty much what he did. He was a hands-on kind of guy. And, you know, that's really what shaped him and who he is, you know, but yeah, Owensboro was very rural. You know, I was probably 5 minutes away from being in the middle of absolutely nowhere, and I was probably 7 minutes away from being in downtown. You know, it was a pretty small place, but I think growing up there was a pretty good thing because it kind of sheltered me from some of the craziness in the world.
Mm.
And it's also kind of you know, getting out and doing what I'm doing now kind of surprised me what some people have gone through or what they went through in their childhoods. You know, because when I was growing up, it was pretty safe. I mean, you know, man, I'd jump on my bicycle and I'd disappear for hours and hours on end, and Mom had no idea where I was. And, you know, as long as I was home for dinner, everything was okay. Didn't get my butt smacked. But, you know, it was just a safe environment growing up. And I really didn't worry about anything, you know, except maybe the redneck kid down the street who I accidentally flipped off one day and he was out to get me. You know, but
as dangerous as it got.
That was really about it. You know, it wasn't. There wasn't a whole lot going on there. I think I remember when I was a kid, I heard rumors of some motorcycle gang that used to be there, but you know, I never saw them or anything. They never affected me. It was just small town Kentucky lifestyle. That was it. You know.
And did you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I've got a younger sister. She's about 6 years younger than me. She still lives in Kentucky.
Mm.
Yeah, it was, you know, and I kind of watched out for her because, you know, growing up, I don't care where you grow up, there's still some assholes. I hope I can say that on the podcast.
Absolutely.
I wasn't sure my freedom here, so I'm assuming we can say whatever we want to
here.
Yeah,
you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, but, you know, I was still protective of her. There were still some kids around who were jerks, and, you know, I took care of her when I could, and then pestered her when I could, too, because that was my job.
That's awesome. And your relationship with your parents and your dad, did you have a good relationship with your dad growing up?
when I was growing up, my parents had me when they were pretty young. And I think they were still growing up as I was. And they were still trying to figure out things on their own. There was a lot of, I'll say there was some anger in my household. And I understand that it came naturally from my grandfather. Like he was apparently a fairly angry person. I was one of the few people he was really nice to. But he passed away when I was 4, I think. So I didn't really get to know him. But, Dad, when I was growing up, I would go work with him. We didn't go play a whole lot, I went camping with him a couple of times, but it was mainly because he went hunting. I was never a hunter myself. I still don't really care to go out and shoot things if it's not necessary. I own several guns, but I'm still not planning on shooting anybody or anything. But, we didn't spend a whole lot of time growing up when I was growing up. And just because I think there was a lot of anger there and I was doing my best to kind of distance myself from it. But even in that, I managed to gain some of my own along the way, too,
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It seems like a common theme of that generation is this underlying anger that doesn't really get managed.
Yeah. And I didn't know how to manage it for a long time. It wasn't really until I started doing my personal development work about 18 years ago that the things started to change for me. But, I could go off on just about anything if I allowed myself to do it. And I didn't like myself back then, back in my 20s or growing up in my teens. That's why, I'm sure we'll talk about this. I was pretty self-abusive back then.
Right.
But it all stemmed from the anger and just not liking who I was and where I was in my life and what I was doing. And, because I really wasn't offering any value to the world. And it wasn't a very fulfilling place to be in life.
So make that real for us. Like, is it in your teenage years, that's when those feelings started to come through?
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was probably 14 or 15 years old, I went somewhere with my parents and I was sitting in the car and I just had this overwhelming feeling of depression. I started crying for no reason. And I remember kind of being left out there in the car while they went in and spent time with their friends. I remember some anger starting to develop then. That's when I started to discover alcohol back then too. And I didn't know alcohol was going to play such a big part in my life, especially through my 20s. But it seemed like a way to escape some of the feelings that I was feeling, at least what I thought anyway. Obviously, I wasn't escaping anything. I was avoiding it for a short period of time. And really wish I had found better ways to manage those situations back when I was younger, because it turned into some pretty nasty stuff in my 20s.
Yeah, it's a common theme of all the guys that come on here is saying, they had, in general, I guess that's why these conversations are so valuable. That feeling of, depression or sadness or anger, and then just medicating with alcohol or marijuana or, getting into fights or whatever the thing you choose is.
Right. I don't know that I was ever getting into fights. I wasn't never trying to get into fights anyway. I was in a couple of them, but not because I started them.
It was more like a depression for you.
Yeah, well, but it wasn't even that. When I was drinking, man, I had a blast. Apparently, I got to the point where I couldn't even remember, the nights before, because I would just party, and within a couple hours, I was checked out, and at that point, I would just have a good time, but I wouldn't remember any of it. I was blacked out for several hours on many occasions. Because the alcohol kind of got out of hand, just because like I said, I didn't like myself at the time.
Where do you think that came from? Like, do you think a lot of that stems from your relationship with your dad, or the?
I'm not going to say. Well, I don't want to put the blame all on him, because it isn't all on him. It's all on me. It was at that point I was an adult and I had the ability to take control of my life. I just didn't know how. I would say that some of it sure came from experiences in my younger life, and I've gone back and cleared out a lot of those things with hypnosis and with NLP, and really released some things that I wasn't even aware were affecting me. To give you an example, I was at a training. This is actually right after I met you.
Right.
I was at a training in Arizona, And we were going through a series of exercises, and one of them was we were doing values elicitation, and we were looking at values based around certain behaviors that we have and how those values affect the outcomes of what we do. And when we start off, we think about all the values that we have that are attached to these behaviors, and then we go through a series of exercises. And a couple of these things, one of them brought up a feeling of fear. And I'm like, I don't even know where the hell this is coming from. So my buddy said, okay, well, just follow it back and see where it takes you. And I closed my eyes. The next thing I know, I was 3 years old. I was in a situation where, and hell, if we're going to be vulnerable, we might as well be. I was 3 years old. Honestly, I'd shit my pants. I was in my bed, and I was terrified to tell anybody, because I knew that as soon as I started screaming and hollering for somebody to come help me, that there was going to be anger involved in it.
Right.
And it really it anchored some fear in me that I wasn't aware of. And when we got all that cleared out through this exercise, I released and learned what I needed to learn from that experience. Coming back in, I looked at the values that I had based around the behaviors, at least the ones that I knew now, and they were completely different. And when we did a values alignment process, they all lined up specifically the way they should, that would lead to the right outcomes. And since then, the behaviors completely changed. But it's really interesting how things that we experience in life that are traumatic for us in the moment, we don't realize how traumatic they are, but how they can affect us for, well, at this point, I'm 47 years old. We're talking 44 years of my life.
Yeah, it's that whole idea that you're still that same person. You're still that 3-year-old boy just 44 years later.
Yeah,
Nothing changed.
Exactly. And the same fear was still there. And
what were some of the values that were associated with it? Is that something you can share?
Honestly, I'd have to go back and look at my notes. I don't remember. It wasn't something that I really had to think about later. It was just a matter of installing them and putting them in the right order so my unconscious mind could run with them.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look at it. But I know that love was part of it, that connection is a part of it. And we started off with 11 values that I thought were connected to this behavior. By the time we got finished, there were only 4.
Right.
And because the alignment had come in a way that my unconscious mind could actually do something with it at that point. Because beforehand, it was running through so many different values and different ways of approaching the problem that I was not getting the outcome that I needed. It was too complex for my mind to actually go through. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So once we simplified it, my mind was like, oh, okay, shit, I got this now.
It's amazing. And yeah, it's always amazing to me, like you said, how many of those things that are hidden. And I guess you wouldn't really know, unless you come across a situation that you have an unexpected response to, like you said, you're feeling fear in a certain situation that gives you, and I guess because of the work you do, that gives you the impetus to go searching for where that might have come from.
Well, and I think that's something that I've learned over the past couple of years is when these things come up is to sit down and go in them instead of trying to avoid them.
Mm.
Because everything you're experiencing is there for a reason. Every behavior you have is actually driven by a positive intention. And that may seem kind of strange depending on what behaviors you have, but they're all driven by something within your unconscious mind that wants you to have a positive outcome from those experiences in some way. It may be protection. And those things can lead to, they can lead to really self-destructive behaviors. Going back and looking at my own self-destruction, looking at the alcohol, the drugs that I was consuming. I'm not sure exactly what I was running from back then because I've worked through so many things since then. And I think if I'd known what I know now and could have approached it that way, I would have gained more insight from it. But I don't feel like it's necessary at this point. But those behaviors were driven by something in my unconscious mind that wanted me to have a better outcome. It may have been, protecting me from the negative feelings or having to look at myself in the mirror or whatever it was. But it was still driven by some positive intention.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've a lot more awareness around this myself in the last few years, and just going through this last, I've been through this transition, leaving my job, leaving Japan, moving, packing up all my stuff, and the sensation in my body has been just pure panic and anxiety.
Yeah,
but,
right.
Yeah, and I can see, well, for the first time, I can have awareness around that and not react to it. I can go, because exactly. I know what I'm doing. I've made the choice I wanted to make. I'm following my heart. I'm doing what I want to do. But my body, there's a response in my body that thinks we're going to die, that thinks you're giving up all your security. We're going into the unknown. And so all these responses are coming up. But like you say, they're trying to get a positive outcome. They're trying to stop me from being hurt in some way.
We haven't had that many conversations, Nathan, but, this is speculation. Going back, there could be some situation in the past where you went through some change that created a negative outcome for you. So your unconscious mind created that association with this kind of change. But if you take somebody who traveled around their entire life and they met new and amazing people, had these incredible journeys, staying in one place might create the same anxiety for them.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Because our unconscious minds are association-making machines. It's what they do. We create associations with everything. And then we create outcomes, and they can be behavioral outcomes. They can be emotional outcomes. And that's what the unconscious mind does. It gives us an outcome from those experiences. So when we have these anxieties, we're literally firing off chemicals in our body that are creating those experiences. But it's based on something that happened before.
Wow. And it's important, you said you work in, do you call it hypnotherapy, hypnosis? Is it all the same thing? I do coaching. I do hypnotherapy.
I do more hypnotherapy than hypnosis because I do more change work than just putting people into trance and doing the silly stuff with them. I'm not a big fan of I'm not putting down stage hypnosis. It's just not for me. I'm not a big fan of the entertainment side of it because I've seen the potential of the outcomes that people can get from this work. And that's why I call myself a hypnotherapist instead of a hypnotist.
I see. And so it's important in your work to actually find the root cause of these things, or is it more important just to go, okay, you've had a certain anxiety, like I'm saying I had an anxiety around this experience. That's all you need to know? Or do you like to trace it back and find the experience that created it?
I look at it like a puzzle, and if we can go back and find the initial sensitizing event that kicked it off, fantastic. But it's not necessary because the unconscious mind has a wonderful ability to generalize things as well. So, take somebody, I had a client yesterday. We were working through, she's been having panic attacks. And we went through yesterday and went back to the last worst time she had one and cleared it out. And then I let her unconscious mind generalize through the rest of them. So, and she's had probably 6 or 7. And by the time we got finished with it, even thinking back to the experiences she had, she couldn't really grasp them. There was no emotional connection attached to them anymore. So it's not absolutely necessary to go all the way back, but I think it's kind of fun if we can, because I just want to see where things go. I look at people like puzzles and, let's see if we can break apart and put back together in a different way.
Yeah, it's so cool. We'll come back to this later on. I want to. Okay. The questions I have around this is like, just because I know very little about it, I'm excited to talk to you about it. But it seems to me that what's the outcome you're trying to achieve? You're trying to remove all these blocks so that this person is free, or this person is just, can go through their life without these responses, or what? That's the kind of stuff I want to dive into. But we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Is in your 20s, so going back to in your 20s, you said, it was not your favorite time. You didn't like yourself that much. You kind of self-medicated a little bit. What were you doing job-wise? Did you go to university from Kentucky, or what happened there?
Well, I left high school and went to the University of Kentucky for a semester. And that's when everything kind of broke loose. That's when I discovered I could really party and be free. And you would never know from the outside that I didn't like myself.
Right.
I was really good at hiding it to the point where, I was surrounded by people all the time. I was apparently the life of the party. I joined a fraternity and I was elected my pledge class president, and I wasn't even running. It just people were looking up to me, and I have no idea why, because I didn't like myself at all. And back after I went back to Owensboro after leaving UK for that semester, and having wasted several thousands of my parents' dollars, and if they listen to this, I really apologize for that because I really, just fucked that up. But I went back to Owensboro, and that's when I kind of started discovering, other kinds of drugs. Just discovered some LSD, discovered a little bit of cocaine here and there. Smoked marijuana throughout the entire time. And, but I was hiding, man, I was running from myself because it was easier to push myself outside and have a good time with everybody else than go inside and have to face whatever I was afraid of facing. Looking back on it now, it's like that wall of water. It looks like something, but on the other side of it, you're like, oh, that's all it was. And I got to the point where I almost pulled the plug. One stormy night, I decided I was done, and I was ready to. I honestly, and I'm still to this day can't swim worth I swim like a rock. But I had decided that's the way I was going to check out one night, and I remember riding my bicycle down to the Ohio River and sitting at this little park. It's called English Park. There was nobody out there because it was just pouring down rain, man, just torrential, terrible. It was a god-awful night.
It's like a movie scene.
Oh, it really was, man. It's like, this is the end. And I'm sitting on the bank of the Ohio River, and I'm like, all right, I'm done. I give up. And I looked up and I said, if you want me here, you better give me a response right now. And I don't know how many miles of bank there are on the Ohio River. It's a long river. It goes from up around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, all the way down to the Mississippi. I'm sitting there on the bank. It's pouring down rain, lightning, thunder. Excuse me, I'm choking up talking about this. Oh, an otter popped its head up out of the water and looked at me and shook its head.
Wow.
And I went, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I heard that. And the otter disappeared. I never saw it after that. Obviously, still to this day, I still have an affinity for otters.
That otter didn't know how influential it was when it woke up that morning.
Well, maybe it did. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it did. But that otter saved my life that day.
Wow.
And honestly, that otter saved a lot of people's lives that day. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Considering the work I've done over the past 17 years. But that was enough to keep me from jumping into the river. It didn't change the way I felt about myself. I still didn't like me.
Yeah.
And you were asking what I was doing back then. I went to college. I went back home. I worked in some restaurants. I ended up getting a job in radio. I worked in radio for several years back in the early 90s, and worked at a country station. And honestly, I can't stand country music. It was like communications boot camp, because I learned a lot there, but I hated every minute of it. And it kind of shaped my speaking abilities and the ability to stand up in front of rooms, and really appreciate getting that from that experience. But I ended up going to college, married my fiance before we left, and went to school for a little while. Still wasn't happy. Still couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Had several different majors in college, and ended up getting divorced and in and out of relationships. And it wasn't a pretty time in my life.
Mm.
Met my second wife, ended up, honestly, right before I was going to break up with her, ended up getting pregnant, and so blessed by that. I have such an amazing daughter. She's about to turn 18. But even then, that was kind of the transition point. That was where I was starting to look at myself. When I found out my daughter was on the way, and said, I don't know who this kid is that's coming, but I know she deserves a better dad than me.
That was the turning point.
That was the catalyst.
Right.
That's what started the transition. It was a 1 degree turn at that point.
Right.
But it was a turn. And that's when I let my cigarettes go. that's when I got hypnotized for the first time. And that changed everything, getting hypnotized for the first time.
Wow. And so where does the journey go from there? So the 1 degree shift, your daughter's born.
Yeah. I ended up getting divorced again, which looking back on it, still, it's the best thing that could have happened. Honestly, we never should have gotten married in the first place. We should have just had our daughter and gone our separate ways. But, life is what it is, and we gain what we gain from it. No, I ended up going back to the town where I was in college, which was about 45 minutes away from my daughter. And I had friends there, so I could step back into that. It ended up, just trying to figure myself out. I was still partying, but, I was letting a lot of stuff go. I just discovered hypnosis and self-hypnosis. And, that's when I was starting to make some transitions. I was still drinking way too much though, and that's something that kind of disappeared over the next few years, I guess.
Mm. So it was more like a slow transition. There wasn't one big turning point where your whole life changed. It was just a slow transition.
Yeah, well, the cigarettes were the big thing. That was an instant transition. That was, boom, it's over. I'm like, okay, wow, that's really cool. Because I'd tried to quit for 2 years before that and couldn't do it, and just couldn't put them down. Every time I did, I ended up buying another pack 10 minutes later. But going through my divorce the second time was really heart-wrenching because my daughter was involved this time. The first divorce kind of sucked, but it was coming. The second one, I missed my daughter, I think, more than I missed my wife, and that kind of led me into some depression as well. So it was a slow transition over a few years there.
And what did you learn from those relationships?
Which ones?
Well, I guess the first one you got married again, and then that didn't work out. What was the?
Yeah, well, from my first wife, we were just so young. Again, I was in love, but we were both too young, and she came from a household that had more anger than mine, and it was a volatile situation. So, that was just best left behind. And what did I learn from that? Just I need to relax more. And I have over the years, obviously, but there's still some anger in there. We can talk more about that later. It doesn't rise up as much as it used to, but it's still there, and I can still get a tinge of it every now and then. But I think what I learned from the second one is be absolutely sure before you decide you're going to sign a piece of paperwork. We came from two different worlds. I was very artistic, kind of hippie-ish, long hair, long beard, and she came from a Southern Baptist background. We were attracted to each other, but I don't think there was that emotional connection that I had with my first wife. But I got married because I wanted a family, and I guess I was willing to settle for her to have that at the time. Oh, thank God! The divorce was the second best thing that happened to that marriage. My daughter being the first. But I just I don't. As far as marriage goes, I don't know that I'd ever step back into it again. If I find the partner that I'm going to be with for the rest of my life, then fantastic, and we stick together and we go through the tough times and the good times and we stick it out, and that's great. But I don't see any point in having a piece of paper and having lawyers between us anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's interesting to me. Like, I'm sure you don't have any regrets or anything like that. Everything's been for a reason, but
exactly, yeah.
Someone that's going through that, because it seems like you had a lot of troubles going on, a lot of stuff that you need to deal with. It wasn't being dealt with. Like, what advice would you give to someone that's in their 20s that knows their life's a bit tumultuous, maybe has that feeling of not liking themselves that much, is drinking too much?
Yeah.
What steps can you take to kind of avoid stretching that out for too long?
Reach out. Reach out to somebody who's been through it, because somebody who hasn't been through it can't give you any advice, and they're not going to be honest enough with you because they don't understand. They haven't been there. And there are plenty of us out here who have been through this. So drugs and alcohol are not, that's definitely not something that is foreign to, growing up. It becomes a part of our lives for many people. And some people, they party through it and it's fine. They do what they do. They get through their 20s and it's great and it's all over. But if somebody's in a situation where they're doing it because they're masking and they're covering things up, then just go talk to somebody. Go have a conversation with somebody. Go call Nathan. Have a deep conversation with somebody about what you're experiencing and be open enough and vulnerable enough to allow somebody to help you. And I know sometimes, especially in our 20s, we think we're indestructible. And we also don't want to seem vulnerable to people. But honestly, that's the way through it. You have to be open. You have to be honest with yourself too. And but find somebody to talk to. Find somebody to have a conversation with. You can't do it on your own.
And who was that for you? Did you end up finding one person that really changed things for you or that you were able to talk to?
I've found a series of people over the years. I wouldn't say there was one. There have been some that have been influential in my growth, but it's not all one person because I want to learn as much as I can from as many people as possible. Most of them are older than me. Because I love talking to old people, man, they've been through it, Yeah. Some of my favorite conversations in my life have happened with people who are 80 plus.
Yeah.
Because, because they've lived, they have things to tell you, they have things to teach you, and listen to them. God, listen to them. Pay attention.
There's no new problems.
What's that?
There's no new problems.
No, there really aren't. And they've been through it most likely. So, listen to what they have to say, take it to heart, put it into action, and live a better life that you deserve than trying to figure out things on your own.
I love that.
But yeah, there have been a handful of people that have stepped up and they've come into my life at just the right time,
Yeah. Can you give me some examples of who are the people that you're thinking of?
Well, I had a friend named Jim. I'm not gonna say his last name.
Sure.
But when I moved to Nashville, we just really became friends, and he had been through a lot of stuff that I'd been through. And when I moved here, honestly, this was 14 years ago. I was still a little depressed because I really didn't have any family to support me. None of them wanted me to move here. My daughter was moving away. She was going to be living in Flagstaff, Arizona, which was, on the other side of the country. And just felt really alone when I got here.
And what brought you there? What was the reason you were going there?
Well, I found this ability to hypnotize people and found that I'm really good at it. And I started practicing this when I was living in Kentucky and playing around with it up there and realized, I'm actually pretty damn good at this. I think I can do this for a living. But I was living in a town called Murray, Kentucky. It's a town of about 17,000 people. And there's no way that this kind of work was going to last up there for any length of time because it's a small rural town. And so Nashville was close to home. It was still somewhat close to my daughter. It's still somewhat close to my family, still somewhat close to my friends. And it just seemed like and I've always liked Nashville. So I just decided to move here and start my practice. And literally just threw all my stuff in the back of a truck and a pickup, back of a truck and a trailer one day and drove down here and put all my stuff in storage and ended up sleeping on a friend's couch for a while. Quite a while, actually. We were both happy when I left that couch.
There's plenty of those stories.
Yeah. Because I came down here, I had less than $400 to my name.
Right.
And had no job. All I knew how to do was hypnotize people. I didn't know how to market or build a practice or do anything. So I ended up waiting tables for a while. And, spending time downtown because I was working in restaurants down there. And that's where I met this guy. And he just kind of became a mentor and somebody I could talk to. And, those nights, because I'd still go out and drink sometimes because I was in the restaurant business, but the next day I would regret it. And I'd call him and we'd have conversations about it. And he'd kind of help me talk me back down so I wouldn't go do it again that night. Because I felt alone. Even being surrounded by people, I was alone.
Yeah, was that just inability to be vulnerable, to connect, to open up? all those kinds of things?
There was no way I was going to be vulnerable back then.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't let anybody know what I was feeling, what I was thinking. No, absolutely not.
Yeah, it's interesting. Those things always come hand in hand with loneliness. You know, you can't, or you don't know how to share your deepest truth, or you don't know how to open up, or you don't know how to connect, or you don't want to. Right. And, you know, one of the symptoms is you feel very lonely.
Yeah, I was living a very surface life and having a great time outside. But then I'd go home and I would just be depressed, you know, because I was there by myself and there wasn't anybody around. And now I'm completely okay with being alone. I don't feel lonely at all. There's a big difference because I like me now. I enjoy being with me.
Yeah, you enjoy your company.
Yeah, I enjoy my company. I enjoy the things that I do now. I'm not hiding from who I am. You know, and like I said, when emotions come up and when fears pop up, I just sit with them and go inside them instead of running away from them. And it's given me a lot of insight into who I am and what drives me and what makes me happy. And but it's been a long journey. You know, it didn't happen overnight.
Well, what's your experience with it? You know, sitting with those kind of things. It's one thing I've noticed lately with me is I don't like getting bored. You know, so if I find myself kind of hanging out with nothing to do for too long, I start to get uncomfortable. And so I jump on my phone, or I go out with some friends, or, you know, just start muting the feeling of boredom or whatever that feeling is. So how would I sit with that? Or what would be the way to sit with that powerfully?
Well, with boredom, first off, what do you mean by boredom? How do you know you're experiencing it?
Yeah, I think it's not so much. Maybe it's not boredom, but I think if I sit around for too long, I get in my head and my mind takes over, and my thoughts are running crazy, and I don't know. Yeah. That's not a fun place to be for me. So I don't tend to sit around for long.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and at that point, maybe you should.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I've been practicing that more and more, but I wonder if there's a way that I can do it better.
Do you meditate?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. What kind of meditation do you do?
I'm pretty simple. I don't get too complicated with it. So I usually just sit between 30 minutes and an hour every morning and just sit. I don't sort of get myself into any states or anything like that. I just be with everything. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and that's a perfect way to do it. Just let that stuff go by and realize that most of the thoughts that are in your head are a bunch of bullshit anyway. Because they really are. You know, it's just a flow of stuff that goes through our mind every day that really doesn't mean anything. But as far as combating boredom, honestly, man, I don't even know what boredom is anymore. I've got so many things that are on my plate right now that keep me busy that I don't have time to slow down and even be bored. But
I think that was it for me. I think I was busying myself with stuff that wasn't necessarily important or essential, just to not be bored. And so that's my experience is kind of, you know, now that I have more time on my hands all of a sudden, just sitting with, okay, I want to busy myself and going, well, there's nothing essential that I need to do. So how can I just be with this feeling of wanting to do something, wanting to be busy? And I guess it's a combination of all those things. So maybe boredom's not a good way to put it, but just that feeling of not wanting to sit still, wanting to be busy. But I know, like, it doesn't feel good. I know, like, it doesn't feel authentic to be doing that.
Be sitting still, or to have that feeling of
feeling, like sitting still feels like something that I need to do more of, and so
like an inner agitation, or
I think so. Just
you kind of feel like you need to be moving all the time, or
totally, yeah. And anybody that knows me will be laughing as I say that, because that's sort of what I'm known for, is never stopping, you know, never sitting still for too long.
Yeah. Well, then get up and move, man.
Yeah.
You know, listen to your unconscious mind to see where it takes you. You know, like I said, I've got so many things going on right now because my practice is keeping me busy, and we're completely redesigning my training company right now. I just took on a new partner. So we're rebuilding the new website right now and getting it ready for a complete relaunch here the next week or so. So,
it's full steam ahead.
Yeah, it really is. You know, from the time I get up to the time I go to bed, I'm doing something. And if I get a chance to slow down for a few minutes, I go jump on my Harley and go for a ride. That's what I'm doing tomorrow morning. I've scheduled time out for it so I can get the hell out of here and go ride for a while. Because that's as much meditation for me as sitting on my meditation pillow every morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's dive a little bit more into hypnotherapy then, and just
sure.
Yeah. So you sort of started getting into hypnosis yourself when you're back home, and then you decide you want to make a career of it. Where does it go from there? How does it grow? How does it expand? How do you get to this point now where you're very renowned for what you do?
Where does it go from here?
From there, like from when you kind of got to Nashville, you were setting up, you dabbled in a little bit. How did you get it to this point, to this point now?
Exactly. That's what I had. I'd been dabbling it into Kentucky when I moved here. I knew I had to build a business and I knew I had to make some money somehow, but I had no idea how to do it. So I started looking at guerrilla marketing. What's the cheapest way I can put the word out there, because I have no money at all. And like I said, I got a job in a restaurant, so that was kind of putting some food in my mouth, but it wasn't even getting me off the couch that I was sleeping on, not sitting on, because I wasn't sitting, I was working. But trying to figure things out, and ended up getting business cards printed up. Man, I was putting business cards anywhere you could think of. Literally, I would go to bookstores and find every book on quitting smoking, and I'd put a card in it. Nice. I'd find every book on losing weight and getting healthy, and I'd put cards in them. I was looking at every book I could find on anxiety and putting cards in them.
It's amazing.
Well, I knew I had a focused audience because it's what they were looking for.
Yeah.
And that worked out well for a while until the cards. If you all decide to start doing this, make sure you push the cards in far enough that they don't fall out at the counter at the bookstore, because that's what happened. A few of them fell out, and they called me and told me not to do it anymore.
That's awesome. I love the initiative.
Well, I was trying to figure out anything I could do to put a butt in a chair. Mm. And at the time, I didn't even have an office. I was actually going to people's homes, which is really strange sometimes.
It would be.
Because homes may look normal outside, but once you get inside, there's some oddities in there. And had some pretty a few interesting experiences. Most people were fairly normal, but a couple of them were just I just wanted to get out of the house.
Yeah.
But, and just through some networking meetings, I ended up meeting a chiropractor and worked out of his back office for a little while until I showed up one Saturday morning. He was asleep on a cot back there. Apparently his marriage had fallen apart, so he fell asleep in his office. And as I'm coming, I've got a client right behind me. I open up the door, and there's a cot, and there's this guy sleeping on it. I'm like, well, maybe we shouldn't do our session in here today. But ended up just through several different offices over the years, and it ended up, about 2005, I guess, I discovered conversational hypnotherapy. And that started to have a really big impact on the work that I was doing, because most of the work that I was doing before that was fairly scripted. I'd memorize some scripts and I would take people through those scripts. But once I understood that what I was doing really wasn't as effective as it could be, then I was looking at ways that it could be more effective. And conversational hypnosis kind of jumped up and filled those gaps for me.
So I guess the clue's in the name, but what is it? What's the difference?
Well, in conversational hypnotherapy, what we're doing is literally having conversations with somebody and guiding them through experiences that it can happen completely open-eyed. Their change can happen just through the conversation. And there's some NLP attached to that. There's some Milton Erickson's work that was studied over the years that's been kind of played into this. But it's just a different way of approaching. It's not shut your eyes and I'm going to count down from 10 to 1 and you're going to be hypnotized. It's let's have a conversation. And during that conversation, what I am doing is looking for specific signs of trance that we all exhibit, because we all go in and out of trance all day long. I'm looking for specific signs that tell me that somebody is going in that state in that moment, so I can start to introduce suggestions and ideas and help them break. Actually, we're breaking the neural connections they have in their brain. There's a lot of neuroscience behind this as well. and some quantum physics in there too. So it's a different approach to hypnosis than swinging a watch and telling people to cluck like a chicken.
Yeah, the old version.
Yeah.
Well, that's so interesting. So tell me what you mean by trance, first of all.
Well, there are different levels of brainwave activity. And you may know this, some of your listeners may or may not. We have beta, alpha, theta, and delta. There's also gamma, and there's another one above gamma, and there's one below delta as well. But they're so rare that we're not going to worry about those. Beta is normal waking consciousness. That's when you're having conversation, you're completely aware of what's going on around you, you're connected with the world. When the brain waves begin to slow down and we go into more of an alpha state, that is a light trance. It's where you're sitting there watching television. So you're reading a book. You're daydreaming. Maybe it could be light meditation or even starting to doze off.
You just sort of tuned out the outside world a little bit.
Yeah, you're exactly. You're in your own thoughts at that point, pretty much, or connected to the experience that you're having directly in front of you that you're focused on, like television, movie. Driving is another experience like that. If you drive 10 miles and you look up and go, how did I get here? Well, that's a form of trance. Your unconscious mind was in control at that point. We also have theta. Theta is where we're getting into deeper levels, and actually alpha. We can experience light levels of hypnosis in alpha. We experience deeper levels in theta. Also, meditation is in there. Sleep, and then we get into delta, where we get into REM sleep and all the way down into coma state. But the thing is, and what we've understood over the past several years, that the depth of trance has nothing to do with the outcome when we're doing hypnosis.
So it can be any of those levels.
It could be, yeah. Well, it typically it's more in alpha because we have their attention absorbed at that time.
Right.
Okay. In beta, your mind can be all over the place. So the thing is, one thing we have to have when we're doing hypnosis is attention. Without attention, we can't do anything. Whether I'm doing a rapid induction on somebody or whether I'm doing conversation with hypnosis with somebody. If their attention is drawn away, then their mind is not going to be able to do the processes that I want to take them through.
Mm. So you said you're looking for signs that somebody's in trance. Well, what sort of signs are you looking for? Just that they're...
Well, there's blink reflex can change. It could actually stop or it could speed up. Either way.
Mm.
And you've probably seen people go into states like that where they go into eye catalepsy, where they're just kind of just absorbed completely in whatever they're looking at. It could be relaxation of the face. It could be change of breathing. It could be change of heart rate. There could be a flushing of the face. It could be slowing of words. Conversation become a little bit more not necessarily slurred, but the words may take a little bit longer to be formulated. Those are the kind of things that I'm looking for while we're having a conversation.
Right. And once you start to see those, then you can start doing your work.
When I start to see it, then I can start introducing suggestions on an unconscious level, using embedded commands or guiding them through experiences. Even open-eyed, we can help somebody change completely. Like I was talking about a while ago, going back to when I was 3 years old. The change that happened in that exercise that we were doing was completely conversational. We were sitting out in a courtyard at a hotel in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I'm just having a conversation with this guy. And he's asked me a couple of questions, given me a couple of directions and some things to do to connect with that different part of me. And as I'm doing that, it's affecting my unconscious mind and the way it experiences that experience of the past. So this stuff, it literally does affect the neuron connections in our brain.
And I guess the way you describe that, is it going on all the time in a way?
Sure it is.
Right.
Absolutely. In fact, I would even say that all learning happens in a state of hypnosis.
Mm.
All of it. Because at this point, and let me go back and say that again. All learning after about 12 or 13, 14 years old is in hypnosis. Prior to that, we are pretty much information sponges. Up until about 8 years old, anything that somebody of authority tells us becomes our reality. We just accept it. And I'm sure there are exceptions to those rules. But for the most part, people that we hold in authority when they tell us something becomes real for us when we're children. Once we get about 12, 13 years old, we start to develop what we call our critical factor. And that critical factor is a gatekeeper, because basically everything you need to know, you've learned up to that point in your life. You can live your life in the belief systems that you have up to about 12, 13, 14 years old. It may not be a great life for you, depending on the life you had when you were growing up to that point. But at that point, your mind pretty much shuts down. It closes off, and there's that gatekeeper there. And when somebody comes up and tells you something, you're probably going to be a little more critical of it before you accept it as truth. Mm. And that becomes more true as we become older. But to learn anything and for it to become a real part of us, then it must become a part of our unconscious mind. And to become a part of our unconscious mind, it must bypass that critical factor, which in and of itself is the definition of hypnosis. It's bypassing that critical factor and allowing information and suggestion to become a part of the unconscious mind.
So is there a way that we can use this when we're learning new things as adults?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, there's a couple different ways we learn doing things on our own. We learn through repetition or stimulation. Okay. If we do something over and over and over and over and over, then we're going to get it, as long as we're doing it right. Now, keep that in mind, because practice doesn't make perfect. That's what a lot of people think. Practice just makes permanent, whatever it is. Mm. Because anything we're doing, we're teaching our brain to do better, no matter what it is. So if you want to experience something better in your life, then, and this is coming from neuroscience right now, if you want to experience something better in your life, what most people do is they decide they're going to have goals out in the future. And when I achieve this goal, I'm going to feel great. But the thing is, that goal is so far out in the future that random experiences in life come up along the way and knock us off that path. And even at that, the goal that we're holding on to may not have the same values at that point in our life as we've grown more at that point. Mm. So, which is kind of interesting, because we're holding on to an idea that we wanted before instead of one that actually grows with us as we grow. So
the example would be like picking your career at 16, 17, 18 years old.
Exactly. Yeah. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of setting long-term goals. I think it's important to have direction in your life and decide where you want to go and what values you want to carry on through your life. But setting up a specific goal and saying, this is what I'm going to achieve by 5 years from now. Well, 5 years from now doesn't exist. And so much of life is going to happen along the way that's going to, that could push you off track, and then you fight your way to get back on track. But there could be so many amazing things that come up in your life that you completely don't even see, because you're blinded by this one thing that you want down the road. And then you don't even get to live the life that you truly deserve, because you're trying to attain something that you wanted 5 years ago.
Yeah, so interesting.
So the best way to approach this, and the best way to move forward in your life, is decide how you want to feel. If let's say, because I work with a lot of people with weight, let's say, if somebody tells me they're going to feel fantastic when they lose 20 pounds, I'll say, well, actually, exactly how are you going to feel when you lose that? And what I want to do is I want to elicit as much of that experience as I possibly can in this moment. That feeling of greatness, that feeling of confidence, that feeling of satisfaction, that feeling of pride of having accomplished that. I want to put them as much in that state as they possibly can here, now. And then from that state, they can make a choice of what to do next that will move them in that direction.
Well, how does that last bit work? Because I understand, getting the feelings and feeling that in this moment and feeling all the success. But how does that move you towards, say, losing weight after that?
Well, let's say you have this feeling of accomplishment, that you have this feeling of pride. You know what actually doing the next thing is going to do for you, because you're experiencing it right now.
You've had a preview.
You've already had a preview. So if you do it, you're only going to get more of that. Now, by making that choice, I'm not saying decide I'm going to go join a gym for the next year. What's the next smallest step you can take? Can you do 5 sit-ups right now? Having that little bit of accomplishment is going to help move you forward. Because most people, when they start off with an exercise program, they don't have an exercise program to start off with. Right? They haven't done anything for years.
Yeah.
And they go join a gym, and they get their ass kicked by a personal trainer, and they're so sore for the next 4 days that they can't go back to the gym. And they feel let down at that point because they didn't follow through on the things they should have done. And then they're depressed again, and they're back in the same situation they were in before.
And they're feeling the same feelings I've always felt.
And
disappointment and overweight and depressed.
Exactly. Mm. But if they set small goals for themselves in the moment instead of setting them out 5 years from now. So if you feel great right now, what's the next smallest thing you can do? I don't know, I can go work out for 15 minutes. Great, go work out for 15 minutes. Just work out for 15 minutes. Get the feeling of accomplishment from doing that. You don't have to kill yourself. Just do something different than you've been doing. And you start to alter the patterns that way as you do it consistently. Because if you're working out consistently, then you are creating a pattern.
Right.
If you work your ass off one day and then you don't work out again for the next 4 days, you're not creating a good pattern. And you never achieve anything that way.
So this allows you to build these healthy habits just slowly over time.
One at a time. Mm. Just a little bit at a time. There's a great book out called One Small Step Can Change Your Life. And if you haven't read it, you can pick it up. It's an easy afternoon read, honestly. It's based on Kaizen. In fact, I'll give you the whole concept of it right now. What's the next smallest step you can take? That's really it. What's the next smallest thing that you can do that can move you in the right direction? And it could be something really simple. Next smallest step I can take is go put my gym shoes on. Well, good. Go put them on. And then what's the next smallest step from there? I can go walk around the block. Fantastic. Go walk around the block. Once that's done, what's the next smallest step you can do from there? I can do 5 sit-ups. Fantastic. Do 5 sit-ups. It doesn't have to be massive change in life. It just needs to be one, like I was talking about a while ago, that 1% change in direction.
Yeah, over time, it makes a big difference.
It makes a massive difference.
Is this common theme with the guys that I work with, a lot of entrepreneurs, is overwhelm. You know, just having so many things. And you're probably experiencing it at the moment in your own business, just so many things to do and so much to, what do I put my energy into? And that results in inaction, overwhelm, and then do nothing.
Well, yes and no. I do have a lot going on, but I don't feel overwhelmed by it because I look at it as what's the next thing that I can do now.
Yeah.
It's one step at a time. That's all we can take. You know, I hike a lot, and I was out in a park here in Nashville just about a month ago, I guess. And when I go up a hill, man, I go up a hill. I haul ass up a hill because it's what I do. I love just hauling ass as hard as I can up a hill, so I feel like I'm going to throw up when I get to the top. And I was going up this hill one day, and I'm cooking up this hill, and I pass these 2 guys, and this one guy goes, "Man, I wish I could do that." And it stopped me in my tracks. And I turned around and I said, "What do you wish you could do?" He said, "I wish I could move up the hill like that." I said, "Well, what's the problem?" He said, "I don't know. You know, I'm going up the hill, and it just seems like it's so far up the hill, and I have to stop along the way because it's just so long up the hill." I said, "Well, okay, I get that. It is a big hill." I said, "Where's your focus when you're going up this hill?" He said, "Well, I'm looking up at the top of the hill because that's where I've got to be." I said, "Okay, well, there's your problem. You know the top of the hill is there. You know you're going to get there if you put one foot in front of the other, right?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Focus on your feet. Focus on the next step. The top of the hill is not going anywhere. It's going to be there. And if you focus on the next step, it's much easier because you're taking it in bite-sized chunks instead of being overwhelmed by the entire hill."
Well, it speaks to your having the long-term goals as well. Like sometimes having a goal that's so far away and so big, well, it's not reality and you can't relate to it.
Exactly. It's all about taking one step at a time. That's all life is anyway, but too many people take it as a whole. And it isn't that. It's a moment. All your life is a moment. All your life is where your attention is in this moment. Because that's all you can experience.
Yeah, we've talked about it a few times in this podcast, but the most pervasive feeling, and you talked about it, is that thought of I'll be happy when. And it's like, well, what do you need to be happy now? What's missing in this moment?
The thing is, everybody knows how to be happy. Everybody has been happy at some point in their life, even if it's only been fleeting. Everybody has experienced happiness. And even if you can only get a small amount of it back and experience it in the moment, then make a decision of what you're going to do next from there. Because that's going to amplify it, because you're going to have some success from what you want to do, instead of overwhelmed and anxiety because of things that you haven't accomplished. It's the next step. When I lay down at night, man, my head hits the pillow, I'm out. I'm not worried about what I did from the day. I'm not worried about what I have to do the next day. It's just being in the moment and making each choice from there.
And how have you? That's a nice place to kind of bring it all around. This story of struggle and alcohol and stuff through your 20s to getting to this point now. How have you got to this point now where your head can hit the pillow? You enjoy spending time alone with yourself. How do we get to this point now?
Well, it's being willing to spend time alone. Be willing to connect with yourself instead of putting your head in a screen, whatever size it is, whether it's your phone or your iPad or your computer. It's sitting with yourself and listening to yourself and having conversations with yourself and getting to know who you are. There's an exercise that it's been attributed to Wayne Dyer. Rest his soul, but I don't know if it was his exercise or not. It was told by me that it was. Really simple exercise, but I can promise you it'll be one of the hardest things you'll ever do in your life. Get a chair, sit down in front of a mirror, and if anybody here is listening that has children, you'll appreciate this. You think about the first time you saw your child, or the first time you saw the love of your life, and you knew instantly that there was this connection, that there was just nothing but love between you. Keep that in mind for a second, because what you're going to do in this exercise is you're going to sit down in front of that mirror and you're going to look yourself in the eye in that mirror and you're going to say, "I love you," and you're going to say it again. You're going to say it again, again, and 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 on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And there's a couple things I can promise you're going to happen. Number one, you're going to laugh because it seems so damn ridiculous that you're sitting in front of a mirror talking to yourself this long. Second thing I can guarantee you is you're going to cry, because you're going to be cutting through all the bullshit in your life. Because love has a way of doing that. You're done with this exercise when you look yourself in the eye and you say, "I love you." You know it. And you feel it. And you honor yourself from there. You take care of yourself from there. But you know you're going to anyway. That's not in the exercise. It took me about 2.5 hours to do this.
Wow.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard, but it's not something you do in 10-minute increments. Do it.
Sit down and you do it.
Sit through it and get it done. And every single person who's done this exercise, I can tell a difference in their life. I teach this to my students when I'm teaching my classes. And I can always tell the students who've done it the night before when they come back in the next morning. There's a lightness about them. There's a relaxation in their face. There's a brightness in their eyes. There's a big difference because they're connected with themselves again at that point. Because, see, the thing is, you're not your behaviors. You're not your beliefs. You're not the things that you know. You're so much more than that. Well, on an ultimate level, all you are is love.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was beautiful. I can't wait to do that exercise. I can't wait to go and do that for myself, actually. It's something I really want to do. I'm sure
it will
it's challenging.
It will make a huge difference for you.
Yeah. Because this concept of self-love and self-compassion, that's ongoing, isn't it? It's something you have to keep working at, or it is for me at least. But having those kind of exercises are so beautiful, something tangible you can do to actually work towards more self-love.
Yeah, I'll give you another little thing you can do at night too here in a minute if you want.
Perfect.
Yeah, but I definitely encourage everybody to go through that. It's a one-time process.
Yeah.
So, you can do it as many times as you want, but if you do it one time, it will change the way you look at your world. It'll change the way you look at life. It'll change the way you look at yourself, and connect you with the ultimate you.
Yeah,
that part that really is you. That big T truth inside.
It's beautiful, Stephen. It's amazing the work you're doing. I know you've affected so many people through this work, and through the passion in your voice, I can see why. Tell me a little bit more about your business and how people can reach out to you. I know you've recently gone online with your business, so it doesn't matter where people are in the world, they can work with you, which is amazing.
Yeah, I work virtually now. I use Zoom typically. Sometimes I use Skype, but it doesn't matter where you are. I mean, I've got clients right now. I've got a client in Thailand I'm working with. I've had a couple in Australia and Norway. They're scattered all over the U.S. now, so it really doesn't matter.
Australians are the most difficult, right?
Actually, no, they were.
This is the way to appeal to the Kiwi crowd now.
Yeah, no, they were. I really enjoyed. In fact, I enjoyed teaching in Australia too. I taught in Sydney a couple of years ago. It was a great time. But there's a couple of ways depending on what you're looking for. If you're looking for personal work and you're needing some help with some things in your life, whether it's with some coaching or through hypnotherapy, or both, because it's a combination of both. I don't really separate the two. You can find me at Roehm, Roehm.com. And I'm assuming Nathan will probably put a link on here somewhere around
Absolutely. We'll put everything in the show notes.
Yeah, so it's SteveRoehm.com. That's my personal site for my private practice and the coaching and work like that. If you're interested in learning this work, I also teach it. And I'm embarrassed to send you my website right now because it's such a mess. But it's masterhypnosistraining.com. We're rebuilding right now, and I apologize if you see it as it is because there were some problems, and it really looks terrible. So,
well, by the time you listen to this, it's all fixed up.
Yeah, well, the new one looks amazing. So we should have it up within a week. So I don't know when we're going to be broadcasting this or when anybody's listening to it. So hopefully it's up and taken care of by then.
Perfect. You touched on it very briefly, and something I've referred clients to you for is stopping smoking. You've got this amazing system through hypnotherapy used for stopping smoking. That's something else you're quite passionate about. Yeah,
I've helped about 4,000 people quit smoking so far.
Pretty good number.
I like it. It's a good one for me. It's something I've been doing. I mean, it's how I got into this work. It's what changed my life initially. And I've developed a process now that I use and I teach as well. We're going to be teaching that in Nashville and Los Angeles this year, and you can see that on masterhypnosistraining.com. But it takes about 2 hours to go through the process. And if somebody needs to quit smoking, get on a Zoom with me for a couple hours, and if you're ready to quit, I can help you quit. If it's not something you're wanting to do, something you're being forced in doing, don't waste my time because I won't take you on as a client. There has to be the desire there to change before I'm going to work with anybody for anything, whether it's with weight or anxiety or smoking or anything else.
Beautiful. Well, the last question, as always, is about your dark side. If you have a dark side, if there's still things that you're working on that can sneak up on you if you're not careful, and how you embrace that part of you.
Well, I was thinking about this because this is I knew this question before we started this, and I've been kind of thinking through. There's still some anger in there, and I think it probably comes out more in traffic than anything else now. Honestly, if I could put a cattle pusher on the front of my car and push cars off the road, some days I would. But there's still some of that in there, and I think there's still some fear of being left alone too. honestly. And that's some stuff that I'm still working on.
Mm.
And I know that's affected some relationships in my life. But, I look at myself as an ongoing process, and I'm excited to work through this and get it out of my life too. I don't look at it as a hindrance. I look at it as a challenge and a new way to improve myself as I let this stuff go and learn what I need to learn from whatever my unconscious mind is telling me because of that.
Yeah, beautiful. And that's the context, isn't it? It's the common theme through everyone we talk to on here again is there's no top to the mountain. There's always something to work on. You got to commit yourself to doing the work. And then if you can find a way to look forward to these things coming up so you can work through them and have a better life, there's a great context to have.
Yeah, well, I think you have to embrace the sadness as much as the happiness, the anger as much as the joy, because it's all who you are.
Mm.
And it's all there for a reason. And the fact that you get to experience these things is what life is all about. If we didn't have, changes in our life, if we didn't have the ability to experience different things, then life would be monotonous and boring. And yeah, that would be terrible.
Absolutely. What is it that everybody always messages me after every episode and go, you didn't push him deep enough on his dark side. So forgive me. But the part where you said, that fear of being alone, that,
yeah.
How does that sneak up on you? Like you said, maybe in some relationship, does that come through as jealousy or?
It has come up as jealousy. Yeah. Yeah. And it's something I'm not really fully understanding where it's coming from yet.
Mm.
That's part of what I'm still working through, but yeah, it's come up as jealousy. And that can lead into anger as well. And, that's never a good thing for a relationship. But the fact that I can recognize that now and catch it before it becomes something that is so overwhelming that I don't even know how to handle it anymore. Because there were times in the past when this stuff would come up and I would just rage. I had no idea what to do with it or how to handle it, where to put it. Now I sit with it and still not getting everything I want out of it, but at least I'm not destroying somebody else's life because of some emotion that I'm having that's based on some experience that I probably don't. Well, obviously I don't remember at this point. So yeah, it's really sitting with it and just saying, okay, all right, this sucks, but it's who I am at this moment. What can I learn from it? What can I take from it? How can I make it different next time?
It's so awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And it's I love it when anybody's willing to not just be the guru, but to say, hey, this is, I'm down the path and I'm doing pretty well, but there's still things I'm working towards. I appreciate that so much.
I don't know that I ever want to take on the title of a guru. I'm Steve.
No guru. That could be a new phrase.
I'm a man trying to get through life. It's just like everybody else, I don't put on that many pretenses. I have honest conversations with my clients, and I'm vulnerable with them too.
Mm.
I don't tell them. I don't want them to think that I'm above them. Because I'm not. I struggle just like everybody else. I've just found new tools to help me manage that struggle in a better way.
Awesome. And now you're sharing it with the world. I appreciate it so much, Steve. Thank you so much for coming on the show and opening up, telling us your story and sharing some of your wisdom as well. I've learned a lot. I'm going to go and sit in front of the mirror now.
Good. Thanks for having me on. It's been fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Well, there you go, my friends. That's my conversation with the wonderful Steve Roehm. Some beautiful insights there. And I love what he was saying at the end there about, getting into the heart, loving yourself. Love is the ultimate thing. That exercise in front of the mirror just sounds incredible. I hope you give that a try. You can find out more about Steve at his website, steve.roehm.com. And as always, I'd love it if you could share this around on Facebook. Give it a like, give it a share, make a comment, send me an email, leave a review on iTunes, whatever you feel called to do. I appreciate it all. Thanks, guys. I'll be back next week with episode 33 of The Nathan Seaward Show.
That was The Nathan Seaward Show. Personal conversations with powerful men.